Welcome back to Coach Stack, your secret weapon for improving yourself through business, investing, and personal growth. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on our next videos. Facebook, Apple, Google. These are the kinds of massive, innovative, and industry-leading companies that come to mind when we think of Silicon Valley. They're not the only companies on the block though. Anyone can rent some office space and call themselves a Silicon Valley company, even if their product or service isn't all that great. Today we're going to take a break from all the success stories and have a look at some of Silicon Valley's biggest failures. So let's get started. Juicero. For the first failure on our list, let's begin with a little sales pitch. Ready? What if I told you I had a juicer you could buy? A really nice juicer. What does it do? Well, it turns pre-packaged pouches of fresh fruit and vegetables into delicious cold-pressed juice. It sits on your countertop, it looks like a kitchen appliance, and it's super shiny and cool. If you're a fan of juice, that probably sounds great. Hold your horses though, I haven't told you how much it costs yet. It's $700. Yep, you heard that correctly, $700. The juicer we're talking about here is the Juicero juicer. Juicero was founded by a guy named Doug Evans. Doug had a pretty weird goal in mind when he started designing the product in 2014. He wanted to bring cold-pressed juicing to the 21st century by creating the Tesla of juicers. What does that mean? I'm not really sure. But to Doug, it meant creating a convenient and sleek juicer with Wi-Fi connectivity. That was the main selling point of Juicero, and the company's only real justification for its $700 price tag. What did you get for sharing your bandwidth with the Juicero? Good question. Wi-Fi connectivity allowed the Juicero to connect with a database of all the juice pouches produced by the company. If the pouch you put in was expired, no juice. If you tried to use an off-brand pouch, no juice. If you tried to refill a pouch or make your own, you guessed it, no juice. Juicero's smart functionality was futuristic enough to win over some pretty high-profile investors. Within 1 year of launching the company, they raised over $120 million in venture capital funding, and there was a lot of optimism about the product. When it came time to actually launch the product, consumers were less excited though. Something about the $700 price tag made people want to think hard about what they were actually buying. That wasn't good news for the Juicero juicer. Almost immediately, people started pointing out that 2 out of 3 of Juicero's smart features only benefited the company by eliminating competing pouches and homemade knockoffs. They also realized that we'd all avoided drinking expired juice for decades by just looking at expiry dates. Then there was the fact that you could buy roughly 2 bottles of high-end juice for roughly the same price as a single Juicero juice pouch. None of these observations were the final nail in the coffin for Juicero though. That came when a journalist found out you could get the exact same amount of juice out of a Juicero pouch by squeezing it. Understandably, Juicero struggled to convince the public that it was worth $700 after all these revelations came to light. Within 2 years, the company was bankrupt. Vessel. Speaking of over-engineered, not-so-smart products, the next Silicon Valley failure on our list is the Vessel Cup. The Vessel Cup made its debut on Kickstarter in early 2014. The promotional content on the product's backing page showed a stylish cup with some pretty impressive features. The most impressive of these was the ability to identify and display the ingredients and nutrition facts of any liquid that was poured into it. Personally, I think that sounds awesome. I mean, I don't know how useful it'll be, but still, the idea has a gimmicky kind of wow factor that makes you want to have one. The product started making headlines and generating interest almost immediately. Within a few months, the Vessel Cup had received over $3 million in crowdsourced funds and venture capital. There was a slight problem though. The Vessel Cup's creators didn't have any idea how to go about creating the product they promised. The technology that could do things they wanted was bulky and expensive and definitely not ideal for a cup. The company blew through $3 million trying to make a bulky and expensive product cup-sized and affordable. In the end, they just couldn't do it. The product that Kickstarter backers eventually got was very different than the product Vessel had promised them. Yes, it was a cup. Yes, it had a display, but that display would only show you what was in the cup when you opened the Vessel app and used it to scan the QR code of whatever carton or bottle the liquid inside the Vessel Cup had come from. People. If you're a fan of the show Black Mirror, this next Silicon Valley failure might sound familiar. If you're not, let me give you some context. There's a pretty memorable episode of the show called Nosedive. It follows a character living in a society where every aspect of people's lives, from where they live to what jobs they have, is determined by their rating on a social media platform. Think Yelp, but for people. How do people get their ratings? Anyone is allowed to rate anyone else based on any criteria they choose. Most people would probably agree that a platform like this sounds bad. Nicole McCullough and Julia Cordray, the founders of People, aren't most people, though. Nicole and Julia envisioned People as an online reputation aggregator that would mimic the way word of mouth works in the real world. Was your waiter rude when you asked him to bring some extra breadsticks for the table? Find his People page and let him and others know how upset you are. Did you see your local neighbour donating some food to the local homeless shelter? Let her know that her good deed didn't go unnoticed with a People review. As a person got more and more reviews, their score would begin to accurately represent the quality in the eyes of others. If this whole idea leaves a bad taste in your mouth, you're not alone. It seems like most people have strong opinions about rating human beings like their products or businesses. It definitely didn't help that the platform was opt-out as opposed to opt-in, meaning that even if you didn't make yourself a People account, someone else could create one for you and leave a review. Needless to say, People was met by immediate backlash. It got so bad that the company had to scrap its plans mid-launch and totally redesign the surface into just a run-of-the-mill social media platform. Yik Yak. If you were in college or high school between 2013 and 2016, you've probably heard of Yik Yak, our final Silicon Valley failure. In case you weren't, let me explain. Yik Yak was essentially an anonymous forum. Think 4chan, but with a better UI and slightly more moderation. What made the app so appealing to students was the fact that posts, yaks I mean, were only visible to people within a few miles of the poster. Sorry, Yaka. Oh yeah, they also loved the fact that it was anonymous. Now, I don't know about you, but an app that gives teenagers the ability to write an anonymous message targeted at people and places in their area seems like a recipe for disaster. Actually, it seems like a fully cooked disaster. As it turns out, that's an accurate description of what Yik Yak became. Cyberbullying became a permanent feature of Yik Yak forums almost immediately. Users began to post bomb threat yaks to get out of exams and assemblies. Schools started banning Yik Yak and giving detentions for students caught using it. Secrets, jokes, tears, crimes, laughter. The first year of Yik Yak was a wild ride. The second year was different though. The company realized that they had created something truly chaotic, and not the good kind of chaotic. They needed to introduce a bit of accountability into the system to cool things down. They did this by taking away people's anonymity. Users had to make accounts and enter personal details just like any other social media platform. Unsurprisingly, this took a lot of the fun out of Yik Yak. Users began leaving the platform in droves, and in early 2017, the company announced that it was pulling the app entirely. That's all for today's video on some of Silicon Valley's biggest failures. There are plenty more to talk about, but we'll have to leave that for another video. If you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on any Coach Stack videos in the future. See you next time!